Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Last Wrestling Podcast, because if I have a wrestling podcast, I get to tell you why you are wrong. Okay, this is, as you can probably tell from the title, this is my in-person description and review and critique and observations, etc. from Sakura Genesis 2021 by Shinihon Puroresu NJPW. But before we get to that, two things I need to talk about. One is why you are wrong. I have come to the determination that I am the only person in the world who actually likes this. Yes, following on from our last episode, the brand new IWGP World Heavyweight Championship belt has been revealed, and everybody in the world but me hates it for some reason. And I know what that reason is. It's not as good as the last one. It's not as good as the heavyweight title. Fine. I will acknowledge that. But this is still an amazingly good belt that does almost everything you could possibly want it to do. First of all, it does maintain elements of the two previous belts. Specifically, you've got the side plates that are almost... well, not an exact recreation, but they're pretty close, of the side plates of the Intercontinental Championship. Specifically, the globes in the middle that show different perspectives of the world, different parts of the globe. In the middle, the main logo, the main icon, the IWGP icon in the dead center, is identical to the one in the most recent Heavyweight Championship, the fourth belt, we're now going to call it, except for the fact it has the word world added to it. As for the rest of the belt, okay, here's what people are saying and here's why they're dumb. One, people don't like the bird, they don't like the eagle. Okay, wrestling belts have eagles on them. Lots of wrestling belts have eagles on them. That is not a valid criticism, I'm sorry. Did you hate the winged eagle belt? It had big pointy wings on it too, and it's one of the most beloved belts of all time. So that, I'm sorry, that's not, the fact that it's got a bird on it is not an argument, if you ask me. The other thing that people are saying is they say it looks like the Divas belt. What? No, it doesn't! Okay, most people who have made it past kindergarten have figured out their shapes by now. It's not a butterfly, it's a shield. You know, like the WCW title that people loved for reasons that I admit escape me. This is a classic and a classy design. It looks good. It's big. It's primarily gold, but there's enough of another color to break it up. It's got the jewels. It's got the lion mark. It's got the IWGP logo. It's got the Intercontinental elements. It doesn't have the nameplates. I get why they got rid of those. I don't like that they got rid of those, but you can't have everything you want. Fair enough. It doesn't look like the Divas belt. It doesn't look like a Transformers logo. And, oh, by the way, the IWGP Heavyweight Championship was established in 1987, June 12th, 1987, if Wikipedia can be trusted. The Transformers logos, or the Transformer franchise as we know it, not the original Japanese Diaclone or Microman, Micromaster, whatever it was called, that debuted in 1984, 3 years earlier. So if it does look like a Transformers logo, which it bloody doesn't, that's actually older and more historic and frankly more prestigious than whatever wrestling is. More people know who Optimus Prime is than know who Antonio Inoki is. Sorry, get over it. Now, the one good argument people have had against this belt that isn't just an appeal to antiquity, that isn't just, you're not my real dad, you're not my real belt, the good argument people have been that it has been an erasure of history. And I'll be honest, even in my last video, that was the one I fought the hardest to get around. That's why I suggested keeping the nameplate gimmick and simply incorporating all former heavyweight and intercontinental champions and thereby maintaining the lineage. Well, obviously, look on your screen, they didn't bloody do that. So, I'm going to swear a lot in British because I've had to translate British into Japanese tonight. We'll get to that. But quite frankly, the argument that the history has been erased or deleted or ignored, that's no longer valid. At 2 points during the show tonight, and I'm assuming this played on New Japan World, I'll be going to check a little bit later, but at 2 points during the show, including before the main event, they played videos that showed the history of both titles. They showed Inoki. They showed, basically they showed like Inoki through evil. And they showed, I saw Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, I was in a spot in the sumo hall that it was kind of difficult to see the screens, but I could see one of them fairly clearly. It was just at an odd sort of isometric angle. But I could see the video. They're acknowledging the history. And then I realized what this is. This is a new era. In Japan, when you change from one state of being to another state of being, you reset the number. When the Heisei era became the Reiwa era, when the former emperor and the now emperor emeritus abdicated the chrysanthemum throne, and his son, the now emperor, took the throne, all Japanese calendars reset to 0. And now we're actually in the 3rd year of the Reiwa era. So it's a reset. Now, all those previous years, all those previous eras did still happen. They are part of history. They have not been forgotten, but we acknowledge this sea change by resetting the number. By the same token, in Japanese schools, when you move from elementary school to junior high school, from junior high school to high school, from high school to university, you reset the numbers. So a 6th grader in elementary school becomes a junior high school 1st grader. And then they eventually become a high school 1st grader, a university 1st grader, etc. So the past still happened, but the number is resetting, and that is all that is happening. All the lineage, all the history, it's still effing there. Try to control my language on this. And they actually phrased it as legacy and evolution. So the history is still there. It is still acknowledged. If they keep this video, if it wasn't a one-off, if they keep this video regularly, the history will be acknowledged every single title defense. We acknowledge and revere the history, but we move forward towards the future. As for the belt itself, I genuinely think it's going to grow on people, even though every Japanese fan that I talked to today, the nicest I heard was, "Amari suki de arimasen, amari suki janai." I don't really like it. And some of that I'm going to chalk up to Japanese cultural tendency to not want to give a direct opinion. They're not going to say, daikirai, I really hate it. They're going to say, I don't really like it. Or I don't like it too much. Or I'm iffy on it, I'm so-so on it. But I still think it's a beautiful design. Now that I've seen it in action, I think it looks good. And I other than the fact that you subjectively don't like the look of it, I don't think there's a real argument against it anymore. But you know what? Leave a comment. Let me know how wrong I am. I will fight you in the comments. Now, something a little bit more serious. And for this, I do feel it necessary to give a content warning. I am going to be discussing issues revolving around domestic violence. If this is something that is triggering for you, please either stop the video now or skip ahead to the following time code. Please take care of yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Your mental health is important, no matter what anybody says. Thank you. At the conclusion of the New Japan Cup tournament, and this is last warning, 3, 2, 1, they introduced a story element of Will Ospreay as part of his heel obsession with becoming the world's heavyweight champion. I almost say grand champion. He started physically abusing his girlfriend, Bea Priestley, specifically hitting her with an Oz cutter in the middle of a promo at the end of the final night of the tournament. Before we go any further, and I really shouldn't have to establish my bona fides here, but I realize it does sound like I'm coming from a position of privilege when I talk about this, so I do want to make this clear. I am a victim of domestic abuse. Specifically, when I was a child, my stepmother used to hit me and stab me with little needles and things when I did not live up to her expectations. And it has taken me decades to acknowledge the fact that that was not my fault for being a disappointment, that I didn't deserve it. I have never been in a position of having a partner, whether it be a significant other, a spouse, etc., physically attack me. I have been in a position where I was on the receiving end of an abusive power imbalance. With that said, I don't have as much of a problem with this angle as most people do. Maybe it's the magician in me, but I care more for what things are than what they appear to be. What happened was a trained professional wrestler hit a professional wrestling move on another trained professional wrestler that the second trained professional wrestler willingly took the move and cooperated in its execution. The Oz Cutter, Diamond Cutter, RKO, Ace Crusher, whatever you want to call it, that's not a move you can do on an unwitting or unwilling opponent. In truth, there was no non-consensual violence here. Additionally, I actually am a supporter of intergender wrestling. This is the Chikara fan in me. I think if presented correctly, and this was not presented correctly, if presented correctly, it can be shown to be really no different than a junior heavyweight fighting a heavyweight. Additionally, the writer in me, Will Ospreay is a bad guy. Bad guys do bad things. I'm not even going to look up the guy's real name here, but Will Ospreay is a fictional character on what is, for all intents and purposes, a stage/television show. And are there bad guys that abuse their significant others, their spouses, their family members? Absolutely. We don't get angry when the Joker abuses Harley Quinn, and he abuses Harley Quinn in every iteration where these two are a couple. So why are we upset about Will Ospreay hurting Bea Priestley? Well, part of it is that Will Ospreay himself was on, the man who plays Will Ospreay, again, not going to look it up, was on the receiving end of some accusations as part of the speaking out movement. And while what he was accused of was unconscionable, he wasn't accused, as far as I'm aware, of hitting anybody or of being violent toward a partner. So I get why people might find this a little bit skeevy, but they're not exactly acting out what he did in real life, or what he is accused of doing in real life. So is he the right guy to have used for this? No. This was a dumb idea. But I don't think it was as bad as a lot of people were making it out to be. I actually heard about this before I saw the show, the final episode of the New Japan Cup. And I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for this this attack. And it's an Oz Cutter. Wait, that's it? He doesn't hit her, he doesn't slap her, he doesn't kick her, he doesn't strike her in any way, he doesn't hit her with a weapon, he doesn't have his goons beat her up. He just executes a wrestling move on a professional wrestler. Now, there may have been more at the subsequent Road 2 shows. I do not watch Road 2 shows, but just going off what happened at the New Japan Cup final, this is not a big deal. I'm sorry. Now, if this is specifically triggering for somebody else, your experience is valid. And you have no obligation to listen to my silly little opinion. But for me, and as I said, I'm someone who has had some personal experience with this kind of thing. I thought this was adding a heel element to a not very successfully heel character. Last point on this before I'll go back and add that time code. Domestic violence is a problem in Japan, and it has been a problem in Japan for many, many, many years, but Japan has a cultural expectation that matters of the family are the business of the family. It's not the role of the government to get involved in this sort of thing, even though we do have a version of, say, Child Protective Services. Domestic violence is a crime. It is a badly underreported crime. And I won't say it's a good thing, but one of the just factual results of the pandemic has been that more of these cases are coming forward. And that means that domestic violence has been in the news in Japan over the last several months. I think part of this is New Japan wanting to cash in on the zeitgeist. Stupid! Don't do that! Okay, you want to be relevant, that's wonderful, but this was just a really, really dumb way of going about it. And, again, because there was no actual violence involved here, the worst thing is it didn't work! And with that, we will now return to the main general audience portion of our program, and that is we're going to take a in-person look at Sakura Genesis. Now, of course, just to be on the safe side, no video, no footage, we're just no pictures, we're just going to talk about this. You can't stop me from talking to you, Terebi Asahi. First off, some general observations. I didn't really realize until this event that Sumo Hall, the acoustics in there are fantastic. I was up in the second floor, I was up in the balcony, and I could hear every single thing that was being said in that ring. I could hear every slap, every kick, every sound, every bump. It was great. I stopped short of saying there isn't a bad seat in the house because the two entrances are on diagonally opposite ends of the ring. There are a lot of seats where you can see one entrance ramp or one entrance way, you cannot see the other. I happened to get lucky, I could see most of both, but that was just random luck of the draw on the seats. And it is kind of cool seeing professional wrestling in the sumo environment. You see the champion Yokozuna looking down on you from the boards. You see the top of the sumo setup, the sort of shrine-esque top of the thing that hangs above the doyo, and it looks fantastic. It's this wonderful Japanese atmosphere. Getting on to the actual show, actually going to go in reverse order. We're going to start with the main event. Will Ospreay defeats Kota Ibushi to become the second IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. I'd say the first half of this was not very good. The fans were clapping along almost out of obligation. I actually saw one person falling asleep, but things picked up at one very specific point. Will Ospreay hits a shooting star press to the back of Ibushi, who is draped over the top rope. When that happened, everybody went bonkers. And they remained invested for the rest of the match. And the stuff that I talked about before, yeah, it didn't work. People were... Okay, it's really difficult to tell under the current rules when all you're allowed to do is clap. A lot of people were cheering for Ospreay because he does a lot of cool moves. He looks good. People respect his skill, and they don't want to boo him. Shoehorning in the stuff we talked about, it didn't bloody work. Not that working would have excused it, but this is just double damning yourself here. I will say the finish did come as a shock to me. I know some people have predicted a title change. I'm always hesitant to predict title changes with New Japan because it's New Japan. But yeah, we have a new champion, and a lot of people were really surprised by that. Another thing that was surprising to me, and I like when bookers subvert my expectations. You had Jeff Cobb, Zadomineta Great Okan, and X all standing at ringside the entire match. And credit to them, they were in character the whole time. And they were standing there for half an hour, doing absolutely nothing. There was no interference in the match. And I kind of like that. I like that United Empire, I'm pretty sure, is still a heel stable, but they don't need to cheat because they're that good. That's something I respect. It distinguishes the bad guy factions here. We get to the end, and I mentioned how I had to translate English, or I had to translate British for people. Well, Will Ospreay, and I know there is zero chance Will Ospreay is listening to this, but Will, if you are listening to this, slow down. When you speak to a Japanese audience, put one, slow down in general, two, put some pauses between your sentences so that the people who are trying to translate this have the opportunity to do so, including me, because not a lot of foreigners in the building because COVID, but the people around me were asking me and kind of, fudging the rules a little bit. Hey, what's he saying? What's he saying? And I had to translate I had to translate the entire promo. I missed out on a couple of the details because he was going so fast and I was trying to keep up. And my Japanese is good enough. I was able to do it. I just couldn't do it in real time. So yeah, for those of us who have to translate for you, Will, slow down. After the match, and by the way, every single match on this card had an angle associated with it. After the match, the rest of the United Empire attacks the defeated god, the slain god Ibushi. We had Jeff Cobb delivering the Wrath of the Gods, or Tour of the Islands, to Ibushi, so I'm thinking maybe there's going to be a Cobb-Ibushi feud. Yes, please. Cobb and Ibushi Matanza. Gimme. We then had Ospreay calling out Okada, saying he wanted revenge for his loss at the Tokyo Dome. So Okada comes out, he's about to respond to the challenge, when a Wild Takagi appears and says, yeah, bullshit. No, you and I have unfinished business. Before you get to deal with Okada, you gotta go through me, kid. And Okada, being surprisingly tranquilo about this whole thing, basically says, yeah, okay, whatever. You two fight it out. I'll take on whoever wins. I got next game. My quarter's on the machine. Wow, that's a reference that dates me. Main event in total, well, it didn't start out very well, and I think a lot of people are still getting used to the new belt. By the end, they were into it, and we've now got two feuds, possibly a three-way, that I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the Ibushi Cobb idea, or just Ibushi versus the rest of the United Empire. It was good. Semi-final, we've got Roppongi 3K, Sho and the returning Yo defeating Suzuki-gun, El Desperado, and Kanemaru Yoshinobu for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship. And this was a nice little feel-good story of the team that never lost, the team that had to be stripped because one of them got injured, regaining the belts. That was cool. I don't know about anybody else, but I was waiting for the heel turn by Yo. If they're going to do that, they're giving them one last title run before they close the book on Roppongi 3K. And considering I don't think Sho, while he's improved tremendously over the last year, I don't think he's ready for the Never Openweight Championship or the Junior Heavyweight Singles Championship quite yet. We had our post-match angle. Yo challenges Desperado for the Junior Heavyweight Singles Championship. And again, I would like to see that. Well done. One more thing on Roppongi 3K. I like the new entrance theme. They're going in on this 8-bit thing, and I like it. I saw quite a bit of Sho merchandise playing off the 8-bit thing. The match right after the intermission, we had Tanahashi and Kojima, because reasons, beating Jay White and Bad Luck Fale in a tag team match. Afterwards, Tanahashi accepts Jay White's challenge, and Tanahashi's English is not that bad. He needs to work on the pronunciation a little bit. But Tanahashi accepts Jay White's challenge for a match for the Never Openweight Championship. I imagine that's going to happen at one of the dome shows or the stadium shows coming up in a couple of months, but that could happen a lot sooner than that. Before the intermission, the United Empire, Great Okan, Jeff Cobb, and X versus Los Ingobernables de Japón, Naito Sanada and Takagi Shingo. Well, X, Aaron Hanare. They have changed the character's name. He is no longer Toa Henare. I believe Aaron is his real first name, but yeah. And he is apparently now known as the Ultimate Weapon. And again, this was something, credit to the guys over the Super J-Cast. As much as I've been disagreeing with them lately, they predicted this one very well. I had no idea. Honestly, I didn't care. I didn't think this was going to be the Forbidden Door getting kicked in. I didn't think this was going to be Moxley or somebody. I'm glad it was a foreigner. I'm glad it wasn't a Japanese character. I realize the Great Okan is Japanese. His character is Mongolian. Sorry. And they reiterated the name on the microphone, Great Okan did several times, just to make sure we all got it. And I like that. I'm not convinced a heel turn is what this character needed, but it works better than being Tanahashi's little buddy. So I'll give that a free shot, give that a chance. Second match of the night: Yoshihashi, Ishii, Goto, Giggles McCheats-a-Lot, and Okada versus Dick Togo, Pimpy McPimpface, Ishimori, Kenta, and Evil. Well, that was certainly a match that happened. Chaos wins, and the angle coming out of this, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Kenta stole Yoshihashi's stick. We are doing a Kenta Yoshihashi feud. I don't know what I think about this. I get it, Kenta's gimmick is that he uses weapons, and he doesn't have the briefcase anymore, so he's been using the ring bell, so now he's got Yoshihashi's staff, and that's going to be his signature weapon, I guess. Okay, I think this might be stupid. Opening contest, representing Suzuki-gun, we had Doki, Zack Sabre Jr., and Taichi. They beat the Bullet Club team of Jado, Tamatonga, and Tongaloa. The story coming out of this, dun 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 dun, Taichi has lost the magic fingers of Bitey McGee. Somebody at the ringside, one of the New Japan officers, the staff, got their hand on the glove and walked off with it. So I think the magic fingers of Bitey McGee are officially out of play. And frankly, if you're not going to go full One Ring with these things, you better wait. Just get rid of them. They look dumb. They have always looked dumb. They look like they're made of plastic. They act like they're made of plastic. Good riddance. Final thoughts on the overall show? This was a better match in person than it was on paper. The feeling of a New Japan show, the music, the lights, the rush, the thrill of the sense of occasion, that's always going to be there. If it's a good show, if it's a bad show, if it's somewhere in between, a live New Japan experience is always good and is always a communal experience, one that I do highly recommend if you ever get the chance to experience it. As for the show itself, this was a very good, and it was actually a pretty good jumping on point, which is rare in wrestling, so credit there. We have so many new feuds coming out of this. This was a tight, efficient show in that there wasn't a match that didn't need to be there, because every match fed into at least one feud. And that is that is technically proficient. As for the quality of the wrestling, it's New Japan. It can't be that bad. They kept Giggles Mc... Oh yeah. Yeah, one downside is Giggle McCheats a lot won the match for the Chaos team. Boo. But there wasn't too much shenanigans. They didn't I think we got to the semi-final before we even did the long 20 count, the 16, 17, 18. Oh, we got back in. They used to do that every damn match. I think wrestling's better in person because you get to tell your own stories. You don't have to listen to the announcers. I am going to give Sakura Genesis 2021 an A-, and I'm only taking credit off because the first half of the main event was quite literally a snooze. Thank you very much for listening. It's almost midnight. I need to get this rendered and posted, and then I need sleep. Thanks for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me how wrong I am about all this, and I'll see you the next time I feel like talking about wrestling. Catchphrase sign off.